Chapter 2 Not That Stupid. The two boys had to take a back route to school. By the time they got to the playground, most of the other kids had gone in. The three bullies were nowhere in sight, but Scott's ripped backpack was right by the fire door. His books were on the ground. His notebook was in a puddle. His homework was blowing in the wind, and the backpack was empty. "They got the map," Scott said. Rico swore, then looking through the backpack again. Nothing. "I guess Clay isn't that stupid," Rico said. "Come on, I'll help pick up your homework from the fence." They could have told the principal what happened. They could have gone to the office and explained it all. Scott had been robbed. That was the simple truth. The gang had taken his MP3 player, a Lego truck, and his lunch. But telling wasn't what kids did. If you told on Clay or his brother, they'd get you back. There were stories about that. "We're going to get even," Rico told his friend at recess. "Yeah? How?" Scott asked. Scott was bent over, holding his stomach. It hurt, and so did his shoulder. "We'll go get the map back," Rico said brightly. "I'll get a couple of guys, and we'll take them on. We'll make it 5 against 3 or 10 against 3. "Really?" "Yeah," Rico replied. "You know what they say, there's strength in numbers. Those guys stole your MP3 player and the map. You should get them both back." "You're right," Scott said. The idea cheered him up. "That stuff is mine." The boys went around to their friends, and they had many of them. Some of the guys were scared off by Clay and his gang, but not all. By the end of lunch, they had 8 guys ready. Right after school, they'd follow Clay and get the stuff back. It was a perfect plan. The guys were solid. They could force Clay to give the map back. It was time for the decent kids to fight back. Too much lunch money was going to Clay's gang. Somehow it had to stop. The problem with perfect plans is that they mess up. Last class in the day was science. Rico and Scott looked around the science lab. Their friends were there and ready. They gave each other the thumbs up. "But where's Clay?" Rico asked Scott. "Clay Prentice?" asked the science teacher. "Where's Clay?" No one said a word. The truth was simple. Clay had skipped out. Only Rico and Scott could guess the reason why. "So now what do we do?" Scott asked as they left the school. Their group of 8 guys was ready, but the Prentice brothers weren't there. "Wait till tomorrow," Rico replied. "Yeah, great," Scott told him. The other kids had left, and now they walked down the street alone. "The map will be long gone by then. I bet that Clay is out there digging right now." They walked in silence for a while. It was cold for spring and wet. After the day so far, they both felt lousy. But then Rico had an idea. "You looked at the map, right?" he asked. "Yeah, a couple of times," Scott replied. "So you must remember some of it," Rico went on. "Yeah, I guess some of it." "So that's the answer," Rico declared. "You'll just have to remember the map. Then we use your memory to draw it over, and we follow the map in your head." Scott turned to look at his friends. Sometimes he thought that Rico was crazy. This was one of those times. "Yeah, and then?" "Then we go into the mine," Rico told him, "and find the treasure." Rico was smiling now, the crazy grin that always got them in trouble. "And then do we do this?" Scott asked. "In about half an hour, "And when do we do this?" Scott asked. "In about half an hour. In about half an hour, Rico told him. I just have to tell my mom that I'm having dinner at your house, and you tell my mom that I'm having dinner at yours, Scott replied. Chapter 3. Into the Mine. The two lies worked. Both boys could get away until 8 o'clock. Rico went into his shed and got a shovel. Scott went to his house and got flashlights. They put on some warm clothes and met at their clubhouse. The clubhouse was just a few sheets of plywood against a tree, but it was their place. All others keep out, read the sign. No others had ever tried to get in, but that didn't matter. Okay, remember the map? Think hard, Rico said. He gave Scott a piece of paper and a pencil. You got it? Not so fast, Scott replied. He closed his eyes and tried to see the map in his mind. 1 tunnel, no, 3. Then the split, then... Scott began to draw on a piece of paper. He had only looked at the map 3 times. Still, most of the map was coming back to him. That's good, Rico said as his friend drew. Now, where's the treasure? Scott closed his eyes and tried to think. The real map did not have an X on it, but a kind of circle with some words. The words came back to him, 3 feet under. But where was the circle? You got it, Rico yelled when Scott put an X on his map. You're a genius. I'm not sure I got it right, Scott told him. You'll remember the rest when we get there, Rico replied. Let's get going. The entrance to the mine was an hour from their houses. The boys had to ride their bikes over. There's the X he put on the map. The boys had to ride their bikes over to the old mine tunnels to get there. These days, no one went into the old mine. The Bolton coal mine had been a big one. Back in the 1920s, half the men in town worked there. But a big cave-in closed much of the mine in 1926, and then the coal ran out in the 1950s. The mine tunnels ran from Bolton's farm right to the town, and, well, under the town. No wonder no one had found the treasure. It was 5 o'clock when they got to the mine entrance. The sun, if the sky were clear, would have started to set. But it was a wet, cloudy day, so there was no sun. They hid their bikes behind some of the bushes and then walked to the mine. Of course, the mine entrance was closed over. There were big signs, "Mine closed, keep out, danger." Looks like they don't want us inside, Rico joked. Looks like somebody else has already gone in, Scott replied. There's the mine. They saw that the big concrete block in front of the mine entrance had been pulled away. Now there was enough room for both of them to squeeze inside. They were not the first kids to have done so, and they had a bunch who had gone in just before them. What do we do if we come across Clay Prentice? Scott asked. Hit him with a shovel, Rico replied. No, really, Scott said. Do we run, or do we talk to him, or do we work together? Yeah, Clay is real big on teamwork, Rico said, making fun of Scott. I say we figure that out if we see him. Play it by ear, my dad says. Rico got a lot of old phrases from his dad. Sometimes they were good. Strength in numbers. Now that made sense. Play it by ear, well, that could mean anything. Okay, now I've got the really big question. Are you sure you want to do this? Scott asked. Of course I'm sure, Rico said. Clay is going to walk out of here with a fortune, all thanks to your map. It should be yours, not his. Yeah, I guess, Scott sighed. He looked at the danger and keep out signs. Scott was worried. He had never been in a mine before. He'd heard about cave-ins and coal gas and miners getting killed. He knew that mines were dangerous. He wondered if they were ready to go down. They had 2 flashlights in his backpack. Rico had a water bottle and 2 candy bars. They had on their winter coats, but if they got trapped or lost, they'd be in big trouble. You sure you want to do this? Scott asked. Don't act like a wuss, Rico told him. He could see the fear in Scott's eyes. If Clay can do this, we can do this. Let's go.